Hi everyone, it's Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. And today on Stamp TV, I have a fun, quick and easy project for you featuring the brand new Merry Bright StampTV Kit. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to make this card project. First, you're going to need some ink, and the inks that I'm using are the Gina K Designs Black Onyx, some of the Turquoise Sea, and some powder blue. Then you're going to need some sponge daubers, and I'm just using two of these big sponge daubers that we have on our website, but you can also use the Tim Holtz blending tool or any other type of sponge dauber that you like to use. I'm also going to be using some dies, and I'm going to be using the single stitch die from the Gina K Designs ThermoWeb collection, and this is the largest one. And then I'm also going to use one of the dies from our new tag set by Gina K Designs and ThermoWeb. For cardstock, I am using some of the white cardstock, the layering weight, and then I also have some black onyx, and I have a white folded card base. I'm going to be using some brads. I just have a small assortment of brads from my collection here, and a paper piercing tool. This is the Tim Holtz Craft Pick. I have a little bit of washi tape to secure my die, and then for stamps, I'm going to use one of the greetings from this stamp set, and this is the Merry Bright. Well, this is from the Merry Bright StampTV Kit, and then I'm also going to be using the trees from the Merry Bright StampTV Kit. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to grab my Big Shot, and you can use any die cutting machine you want. You can use Cuttlebug, you can use any die cutting machine with the dies. And I am going to make a window. So I have a piece of cardstock that's cut exactly to the same size as the piece of cardstock that's going to be part of my card. This way, when I put these two together, they're going to line up perfectly. And I'm going to begin by placing my die right in the center. Now, I know some people are very, very picky about what the center means, and they may want to measure it out, and that's fine if you want to do that. I am just going to eyeball it. I'm not too worried about it being absolutely perfect as far as measurements go. I'm just going to make sure that it looks good to my eye. And I'm going to take a little bit of washi tape, and once I have that where I want it, I'm going to tape it down just so that it doesn't move when I cut with it. And you can tape top and bottom if you want, or you can just tape the top. But I kind of like to secure it just so that I know it doesn't move once I run it through the machine. And then I'm going to run that through, and I'm going to cut out that window. Okay. So now that I have that window cut, I'm going to carefully remove this washi tape, because I really don't want to ruin too much of that piece. It's okay if a little bit comes off. And then I'm going to keep this piece for another project. And that is the extent of needing this die to create this window. So now, let me get my Big Shot out of the way here. Now I'm going to take this window and that other piece of cardstock, and I'm going to line them up so that they're perfectly together. And I'm going to grab another piece of washi tape, and I'm going to tape this down at the top and at the bottom so it doesn't move when I use my sponge dauber. You can also tape the sides too if you really want it to be secure. Let's do that just to be safe. We'll tape it on the sides, and then this is not going to move at all. Okay, so now we have our window there, and now I'm going to grab some ink, and I'm going to start with the Ocean Mist. I'm sorry, with the turquoise. Oh, this is Ocean Mist. With the Ocean Mist. I said Turquoise Sea in the beginning, but it's actually Ocean Mist. And I'm going to really ink up that sponge dauber, and then starting on the frame itself, not on the piece of cardstock, but on the frame, just because I don't want a blob, I'm going to start in a circular motion and just gently bring that ink into the frame. And you can see I'm just kind of going around in a circular motion, just gently bringing ink in. And this is because I don't want it to be too blotchy until a lot of this ink has worn off of this dauber. And once that happens, then I can work my way inside more. So now I'm going to start working my way down a bit. And you can see it's so light and so subtle. Doesn't look like much right now, but when I actually remove the frame, you'll really be able to see the difference. And now I'm going to work all around the center there, just adding some of that ocean mist. All right. Now my next color is going to be the powder blue. So I'm going to grab some of that ink and the other sponge dauber, and I'm going to do the same thing, kind of starting out here on the side of the frame. I'm going to darken around the edges, and that's just going to define my line a little bit. And it's going to add a second color, which is kind of nice to have two different blues here. And you can try this with turquoise sea, you can try this with blue raspberry and blue lagoon and the different blues that are in our collection, some of the blue denim, just to see what kind of look you like the best. All right, now I'm going to just gently add a little bit of color in here, just so it's kind of swirly. All right. So now my next step is to grab some stamps, and I am going to use some of the stamps here, some of the snowflake stamps. I'm going to grab a little acrylic block, and I'm going to start with, I'll use this stamp right here. It's kind of a medium-sized snowflake, not the largest, but not the smallest. And then I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper. So I'm just going to use that little rectangle I cut out because I don't have a scrap piece of paper right here. But I'm going to ink that up real well. And then I'm going to stamp it off once and then stamp it, just to give a very subtle snowflake look. Stamp it off once and then stamp it. Same thing again. And you can see I'm stamping onto the frame because I want these snowflakes to not all be right in the center. Some can be in the center, but not all of them. And I'm making it very random. All right, now I'm going to try a different snowflake. I'm going to try this one right here, kind of a little more spiky. And I'm going to use the powder blue, and I'm going to do the same thing. And I am stamping this off on the back side of this little frame so that I can still use the front of it. You can see I'm just stamping off once. Just to create a very snowy little scene. Okay. So now that that's done, I want to make sure that my hands are clean, that I don't have any ink on them. And then I'm going to gently remove the washi tape. Let's make sure that we don't have any ink or anything here on the table as well. And then I'm going to gently remove the washi tape from the back. And sometimes ink will get on your edges, so I did cut this just about 1/8 of an inch bigger than I actually want it to be. So there we have that beautiful frame. Now I am going to grab my paper cutter and I'm going to cut 1/8 of an inch off of each side. So it started at 5 inches. I'm going to take it down to, I'm going to cut 1/16 off, just a little bit. And I'm going to flip it around and cut the other 1/16 off to take it down to 4 7/8 inches. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. This was 3 3/4. I'm going to take 1/16 of an inch off, and then I'm going to do the same thing to take it down to 3 5/8. And all of the measurements will be under the screen at stamptv.com. And also, if you click open the description box on YouTube, you'll see it. Okay, so this should line up perfectly now with this piece of black cardstock to create that nice little shadow layer. And it does. All right, but before we do that, it is time to add a little bit of embossing powder. So now I'm going to take my embossing magic pad and I'm going to rub this all over the surface to make sure that there's no static and there's nothing that's going to grab the embossing powder. And I'm going to grab my Misty for this. So I'm going to start by putting this piece into the corner here. And I'm going to use my bar magnet on the top and then these on the sides here. And I'm going to grab my trees. So here's the little treescape. I'm going to put that right in the center there. Make sure it's where I want it. And then I'm going to close the lid and pick up those trees. Now I'm going to reposition my cardstock. Clear stamps when they're new are very sticky. And then I'm going to ink up this stamp using a little bit of VersaMark. So I'm going to ink that up real well. And then I'm going to stamp that right into place and really put a lot of pressure on it. Make sure I get a good transfer. And now, I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to grab some of my white embossing powder, and I have that in one of these Glad containers. Makes it easy. I have about 4 cups of our embossing powder in here. And this is the white embossing powder, and I'm sure it's a little difficult to see that, but it is actually all on there. And then I'm going to grab my heat tool and I'm going to heat this. So I like to let my heat tool run for a minute or two, or a few seconds anyway, to make sure that it's hot, especially when I'm working with a layering weight cardstock. And then I will emboss that. And you can see how quickly that's starting to come up. Turn it. Make sure that's all fully embossed. Okay. So now I have my little tree line there. But it's a little bit difficult to see because I kept it real light in the center. And that's where this sponge dauber is going to come in again. Now this is the one that had the powder blue on it. And I'm not going to reload that. I'm going to just keep what's on there on the sponge dauber and not add any more. And I'm going to start right in the middle of the center of the trees, and I'm going to add a little bit of color. And you'll start to see the trees are going to start to darken up a little bit, and the actual white outlines are going to be able to show more. But it's not blotchy at all, so you can see that they're starting to appear. I'm going to keep going all the way down. So the trees are kind of glowing with a blue. And that just accentuates those trees and allows them to be seen a little bit better, like that. And then I'm going to rub off the excess. And I guess I should have been a little bit more careful up here like I was in my sample, not to get it outside the lines. But you can always just put a little piece of paper up there while you're doing it to protect it. And you guys get the idea of that. Okay, so now I'm going to adhere this onto a piece of black cardstock. Sometimes when I emboss, I like to put a little bit of tape right in the center. All right. And then this whole panel will go onto a white card base. Now for the greeting, I have a small piece of cardstock here, and I'm going to pick one of the small greetings. So I think I'm going to go with, let's see, where is it here? From Our Home to With Love. That's the one I used in my sample. So I'm going to grab that stamp, And then I'm going to use a little bit of the Gina K Designs Black Onyx ink, and I'm just going to stamp that like that. So now that I have my big shot, I'm going to cut it out using this tiny little tag die from the tag set from Gina K Designs and Thermoweb. And I'm just going to cut that out. And again, if you want to use washi tape to secure it, you can. Or if you have a magnetic plate, that will help too. But it's pretty easy to cut out. You can see how cute this little tag is. It's got that little dotted embellishment on the side. I love that. All right, and now it's time to adhere that to my card. Now, I use this mat. This is my Misty mat because on my Misty, I actually have the mouse pad in here. And the mouse pad is really cool. It's laminated on the top so that you can get ink all over it and wipe it away, but it also has cushion underneath, so it's all together and it just slips in place of the cushion from your regular Misty. But that cushion is very useful because I have it out all the time so I can do paper piercing. So I'm going to just find a spot that I want that. I'm going to tape that down right onto my card, right there. And then I'm going to pierce a little hole in there and choose one of the brads. So I'm going to pick, I think I'll pick a white one for this, and then I'll show you my sample that I did with the silver. So I'm just going to pop that in place and spread that out on the back. And then this whole panel will go onto my card base. Now let me show you my finished card project. Here's the finished one that I made. And you can see that it's got all of the elements that we talked about in the card. And instead of that black brad or white brad, I used a little silver brad. So that is my finished card project. I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video. Stay tuned to Stamp TV for more projects featuring the new Merry Bright StampTV Kit. And thanks so much for watching.